A civil war. A war of a country against itself. And Spain has had many, but the worst one was the one that started in 1936. And the result was a fascist dictatorship that lasted for 36 years. Spain had just started to be a republic in 1931. In this republic, the main reforms given to the citizens was trade unions, land reforms, women's liberation, and autonomy for the Catalonian and Basque country, two territories that had always tried to get independent. In 1934, the CNT organized many protests, and there were anarchist and communist protests against the, at the time, right-wing government. Francisco Franco was sent to crush the protests that was starting to be called a revolution. This, of course, made the left-wing parties get mad. It helped unify them. Communists, socialists, anarchists, and liberals realized that to win the right, they had to do it together. So they formed the Popular Front. This made it so the right got worried, and the fascist party, Falange, got created by José Primo de Rivera. In 1936, the winner of the election was the Popular Front. Primo José de Rivera was arrested, and the military was reorganized to suppress chances of a coup. José Sanjurjo, that had already tried to do a coup early in 1932, began to conspire with others to make another one. He organized with fascists, monarchists, nationalists, everyone who was right-wing. In 1936, the coup started. It started in Morocco under Franco's command. The plan was that generals across the country would rise up in every city. The police helped the left wing try to stop the coup. This made it so the coup was miscarried. Some cities had fallen and some had not. So the war started. Nationalists versus Republicans. This war started very horribly. Everyone had to fight. Being a citizen in this time was wake up, eat your breakfast, and that's if you were lucky, go fight in the horrible civil war, eat supper, again if you were lucky, and go to bed. Nationalists would kill anyone they thought to be a Republican, and the leftists destroyed anything that represented the old days, including churches. They also took this opportunity to do their own revolution, creating tension in the Republican side. The thing is, the nationalists all had the same goals and opinions. Some more extreme than others, but they all had the same ideas. Put the king back and bring it back to the old days. Instead, the Republicans all had their own ideas. Some were anarchists, some were communists, some were just liberals. The government wanted to survive, but the anarchists and communists wanted their own utopia, and their only common interest was hate for the nationalists and what they thought. Oh, and speaking of them, Sanjurjo, the guy who organized the coup, died in a plane crash. Also, the nationalists' main army was in Morocco. How do they bring them across the sea? Well, with their friends, Italy and Germany. The nationalists had support of Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, and a bit of Portugal's help. It started with just supplies, but eventually even volunteers started to help. When Franco's army arrived, it very quickly moved to attack Madrid. And finally, the nationalist territory was now connected. Because of that, Franco was rewarded the commander-in-chief. When he rescued his allies in the siege of Alcázar, he would become caudillo. Translated, it means the leader. His job was to unite the many elements of the nationalists. At the same time, the Republicans were going very badly. The government was changed and now it was a communist government. The communists attempted to unify the Republicans, but they failed. Madrid would come into a siege, and the new government retreated into Valencia. Only the very brave people would stay to fight. The Soviets were looking from afar and started to send guns and aid. Britain and France did nothing because they didn't want to get into any trouble. In January 1939, Barcelona fell. At the same time, the anarchists and the communists spilled out in a civil war, and a civil war broke out in the bigger civil war. Finally, on March the 28th, 1939, Madrid fell, and on April 1st, Franco declared the war was won. In 1947, the monarchy was put back, and Franco became regent for life. Dictator for life. Franco's dictatorship was authoritarian and suppressed all political oppositions, banning political parties. This led to a one-party state where only the Falange party, Franco's party, was allowed to exist. There was an extensive censorship of all media, arts, and education. Franco's government ensured Spanish the primary language, suppressing regional languages such as Catalan, Basque, and Galician. This including banning the public use of these languages, like in school and the job. Trade unions were banned and labor rights were severely restricted. Workers had limited rights to organize a strike. During Franco's dictatorship, thousands of people were executed, particularly right after the Civil War, and in the years that followed. The victims included individuals that were political opponents, Republicans, Socialists, Anarchists, Communists, and others who were against Franco's regime. The execution were done without fair trials. Many people were also in prison, tortured, or forced into exile as a part of the regime's effort to suppress opposition and maintain control. The exact number of execution and victims remains a matter of historical debate, but estimates suggest tens of thousands lost their lives to the political repression during Franco's rule. During the Civil War, Franco also established concentration camps, where they detained and interned individuals perceived as enemies of the regime.
I will now quickly provide you with a timeline explaining the actions done by Franco. In the 1930s, Franco wins the war. As in this newspaper says, say hello to Franco. In the 1940s, Franco orders neutrality in World War II, even though the deal was that it would help Adolf in the war. But Spain wasn't ready for that, it was destroyed already. But Franco sympathized with the fascist regime. When Hitler dies, the newspaper says, in the place of honor, Adolf dies defending chancellery. It says, dive and triumph, Adolf. The new Führer of Germany will keep fighting communism and the Allies. In the 1940s, Spain protests and has no one to get involved in the country to help them. Until in the 1950s, they make a deal with the USA to help them a bit, mostly because they were both anti-communist. In the 1960s, Spain experiences economic expansion known as the Spanish Miracle, aided by foreign investments and tourism. Industrialization and modernization efforts begin in Spain, years after the rest of the world. Society experiences some liberation, with increased education and the emerge of middle classes. However, political repression continues. In the 1970s, Franco's health deteriorates, leading to speculation about his successor.
As Franco's health worsens, there are calls for transition to democracy. Juan Carlos I is descended as Franco's successor, and on November 20th, 1975, Juan Carlos I becomes King of Spain after Franco's death. After Franco's death, Spain underwent a significant transformation from a dictatorship to a parliamentary monarchy with a democratic system. And finally, when it looked like the storm had gone by, it looked like all was going to come back. On the 23rd of February 1981, a part of the military and a part of the Guardia Civil organized a plan to do a coup. They stormed into the parliament and ordered everyone to not move. The tanks rolled down to Valencia and it looked like it was all going to start again, until the king spoke with them and didn't give his support. So they had to surrender. Spain has now been a democracy for years. But there's a problem. Spain doesn't teach about the Civil War or the dictatorship. You don't learn it in school until bachillerato, when you're 17 and you don't even need to go to school anymore. So, Spain doesn't really acknowledge the Civil War. Just some years ago, Franco got taken out of his tomb, the Civil War is still a very taboo subject to speak about. Spain is finally a democracy.
Hey, so very quickly, thank you so much for the support of my last video, and yeah, consider subscribing, joining the Discord, and checking my Instagram out if you feel like it. But yeah, so thank you so much for my last video. I am so overwhelmed. Thank you.